Hello, welcome to Fangle Plays Rift. Today I'm going to be talking about the state of PvP after Nightmare Tide. Now I just joined this warfront and it is pretty lopsided. Happens a lot in Codex. But that's only part of what I'm about to talk about. So first off, let's talk about some of the changes. One of the first changes that you will note is that prestige no longer means anything. You do not need prestige to get the best PvP gear in the game. In fact, there's no such thing as PvP gear anymore. All gear was unified through this thing called gear unification. What this means is that all gear now is exactly the same. There's no such thing as vengeance and valor. It's all hit or defense and offense. There's nothing really different now. So is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, depends on who you talk to. If you are a raider or you like to do dungeons and you just do PvP casually every once in a while, this patch is perfect because it means that you will always be competitive. If on the other hand, you like to do PvP and that's all you do, well, you're not going to be able to progress very fast. The game now forces you to do all aspects of the game to excel, to get the gear. But ultimately, you want to do all aspects so you can get up to raid level. Oh, that was pretty fast. Oh, and I got a killing blow. Nice. You want to do all aspects of the game to get up to raid level, so you can get the best gear in the game. Now, Tran did come out and say that raid gear will be bolstered down, but I'm not sure if that means all the gear, if it means maybe just the gear slots, but the focuses and essences and the trinkets and the proc stays the same. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know about, and just through trial and error, people have come to realize that pure PvP players are at a disadvantage in PvP against pure PvE players. It boggles my mind. It boggles everybody's mind, because if all I'm doing is playing PvP, which all I've been doing, I mean, I'm close to prestige rank 93 now, so obviously I've been putting in a lot of time. Not lately, but... So let's look at my gear real quick. I got some random stuff. I still have my Conquest Cloak. Oh yeah. But then I got some... Abysmal is your expert dungeon stuff, so I got a couple of these things. I ended up having to get a couple of them from the store. This sword I got is probably my best item. I got this trinket I found in an expert dungeon. All these weird looking eye things are from Nightmare Rifts, which you have to do. And Nightmare Rifts, I don't mind doing Nightmare Rifts. I think if you're going to do dungeons, whatever, I don't like dungeons, but I don't mind Nightmare Rifts because you can join a Nightmare Rift, get in there, do it, grind it out a little bit, and it's not too crazy like dungeons or raids. I've tried dungeons, and it's 50-50. Dungeons are a horrible experience because people expect you to have a certain amount of hit, and you have to be in a certain spec. I've talked about my spec, but this spec right here, 32 Arbiter, 37 Pyromancer, 7 Harbinger, is horrible for dungeons. There's no damage in this spec. Yeah, I have all this CC, but who cares? I mean, I could have the best CC in the world. But all they care about in dungeons is, do you have the best DPS? So I got to switch to my Pyro spec and just pew-pew the entire time, which is kind of annoying. In PvP, you have more flexibility, I feel, to try out all these different hybrid specs, which you don't have in dungeons. Dungeons, it's all about pure damage. There's no other aspects of dungeons that are necessary. You don't need to have CC. You don't really need to know anything. I mean, it's pretty boring. It's, do you have enough damage to kill the boss? Yes. Okay, you do good. No. Okay, the group falls apart. Maybe the group falls apart because the tank's stupid or the healer is not geared enough. But it has nothing to really do with skill. It has to do with, is everybody in the group geared up enough to do the thing? Because you could take the noobest tank, the noobest healer, but as long as they have gear, you're going to do the dungeon. There's really nothing to any of these dungeons. I've never had a dungeon group fall apart because of mechanics. We've always fallen apart because of gear issues. Either the tank wasn't geared or the healer wasn't geared. That's all I'm going to say about dungeons. But you need to do the dungeons to get the gear, and then even the gear you get from dungeons is not the best. You still have to go get the gear from the raids. I think when it comes to pure PvP players, I actually talked to a guy the other day. He was in 61 Arbiter, and I was just asking about his spec because you don't really see a lot of 61 Arbiters. And he said, yeah, 61 Arbiter is pretty much the only spec I can run. And I created a 61 Arbiter spec, and I do see the damage is pretty awesome. Defense, obviously, you're a tank spec, so defense is pretty awesome. But I didn't like the lack of CC that I'm used to with my current spec. I mean, this spec right here has amazing CC. I think a Dom would probably have a little bit more, but I would probably go toe-to-toe with the Dom, CC-wise. I saw this really crazy spec. It was like Dom, and I don't know what else it was, but this dude healed himself up really good. He was like, he must have had chloro or something. But PvP is not you can't do PvP purely anymore. You have to do PvE and then just do casually PvP. Well, for players like me, I don't want to play PvP casually. I want to do PvP mainly and casually do PvE maybe every once in a while if the guild says, "Hey, you may want to do an expert dungeon." Okay, cool. I'll help you out with your expert dungeon. But now it's the other way around. You are forced to primarily do PvE and then every once in a while do PvP. And that's just frustrating because I don't want to do that. And for me to get to the level where I feel like I don't have to do PvE anymore means I have to do a raid. Actually, not just one raid. I have to do a whole bunch of raids for weeks and weeks to get the gear, and then I can stop doing PvE, which is never going to happen. My guild doesn't. I mean, my guild might do raids, but I don't have the time to sit here for 3 hours or however long it takes to do a raid and wipe and do it again and do it again and do it again over and over again, and then come back the next week because we only got to the first boss. Raiding in a casual guild is not easy. Now, you could try to find a different guild, but they have set times, and my schedule does not allow me to raid with people. So raiding is pretty much out of the picture. I think one of the biggest issues a lot of players like myself have who are P90, Prestige 90, is that in Nightmare Tide, we spent a lot of time grinding out Conquest, grinding out Warfronts, getting our Prestige up, slowly building up our gear, getting to that Myrmidon, upgrading our Myrmidon to Relic Myrmidon, getting our weapons, our cloaks, all these different things. And I mean, it was frustrating in Conquest when it would take forever to get some of the different pieces you would need so you could upgrade and get the gear. But we grinded through it. It wasn't something easy. It was something slow, long. It took a long time. But we did it because we were doing PvP. We were doing something we loved, and we were slowly progressing to the ultimate gear. And I don't think it was just me. I think there was a couple other people, because this guy, the 61 that I was talking to earlier, we just got our Myrmidon gear. We just got Prestige 90 for maybe a month, 2 months, and we were upgrading our Myrmidon gear. I think I had about half my gear upgraded, and I was doing pretty good. I think there was no way I would be close to upgrading, because, I mean, it becomes exponentially more difficult to upgrade your gear once you start getting your Myrmidon gear, which is fine. I mean, it just keeps the progression going. But we started getting to this spot where we were competitive, like super competitive in PvP. There was very few people who had better gear than we did, and we were only in like half merman gear, which means you can take on anybody. You could do these 1v1s, and you could do all these different things, and you feel like, okay, now it is purely about skill, because you're not going to beat me because you have better gear than me, because I have the best gear. The only way you can beat me is if you outskill me. And if I have better skill, then I'm always going to win. That's what I like. That's what I want to do as a PvP. That's what us PvP players want. We want fights to win because of skill, not because of gear. And it seems like since the expansion, it's been because of gear. And now, finally, all of that aside, I've been talking about Warfront PvP. The problem is even worse when you look at tournaments. During the last expansion, Tryon released PvP Dimensions. And in these PvP Dimensions, players finally were able to put on PvP tournaments. 1 versus 1, 2 versus 2, 3 versus 3, 5 versus 5. And some of these events had some really sweet prizes. Tons of plat, Rex, different things. One of the first ones even had Dalgar, one of the developers, offer extra prizes for the winners. So it seemed like, okay, cool, Tryon's really into this PvP thing, into the players creating their own PvP dimensions and hosting tournaments, and it was streamed on Twitch for everybody to see, and it was this big thing, and it had all this momentum. And a lot of players like myself were like, oh, that's really awesome. I hope someday I can finish getting my mermaiding gear, so maybe I can hope to compete against these guys, because at that time I didn't have any mermaiding gear, and I knew that if you don't have gear, you can't participate. So I'm like, cool, one day I'm going to be up there, I'm going to be fighting against some of these guys, and maybe I'll get my 3-man together, and I'll do a good 3 versus 3. But ever since this next expansion, with the gear reset, I'm like, crap. Am I ever going to be able to do a tournament now? Like, I was almost to the point. Actually, I signed up for a 1 versus 1 tournament, and I was practicing for it. I was doing all these duels against random people, practicing different combos that I could do depending on what class and what spec. And I was actually hardcore practicing. Like, I was like, I am going to study this tournament, and I'm going to try to do my best to win against every single other soul. I was taking notes on how to beat different things and all this stuff. But now after the expansion, there's no real reason for me to even think about doing that, because gear plays such an important role that I will never, ever be able to enter a 1 versus 1 tournament. If they even host one. I won't be able to enter a 3 versus 3 or a 5 versus 5 or a 2 versus 2. And actually, I don't even think we'll see one, because gear is going to make them so lopsided. You're going to have... somebody's going to try to do it. I'm sure somebody's going to say, okay, let's do this PvP tournament, and the winner is going to be the winner is the person in the best gear. And that's going to make people be like, okay, that's stupid. It's like, I'm going to fight you, I'm going to have this knife, you're going to have a gun, shoot me in the face. How is that entertaining? I guess it's kind of entertaining to watch, but there's no skill involved when you beat me in gear. So all these people who go to who do these raids, and they get the best gear in the game, they're going to be like, I'm a raider, I have the best gear in the game. Let me go pwn some Prestige 100 PvPer, even though I'm on Prestige like 13. And they're going to win, and they're going to be like, yeah, we're the best. We've dominated the raids, and now we're dominating the PvP at the same time, which is disgusting. It shouldn't be like that. Just because you're good at raiding does not mean that you should have gear carry you in PvP, and that's what's happening right now. And as a PvP player, it's rough. It's definitely rough to continue playing this game when my overall power is going to get worse and worse. As more people do these raids, as more people do expert dungeons and upgrade their gear, I'm going to be falling behind. Because I just do PvP and occasionally do dungeons. I can't stand doing more than a couple dungeons. I'm going to fall behind. Slowly, my offense and defense relative to everybody else is going to get worse. And eventually, it's going to get to the point where my power is going to be so weak that I'm going to be playing super conservatively because I hate dying. I'm not going to kill anybody. And I'm just going to be wasting my, what are these things called? My consumables. I'm going to get hit 2 times in 2 seconds, and then I'm going to have to kite away and drink and then come back to the battle. And then get hit 2 times and then go drink again. Doesn't sound fun. So this will probably be the last episode until something changes. Yep. I was hoping I'd be able to make it to 100, but there's really no reason to continue doing PvP right now. Even when Conquest comes back, I don't really have any hope for Conquest because I'm gonna have the same problems. In Conquest, I used to love to run around and try to find these good 1v1 fights, and me being in my PvP gear, I could probably take on 2 or 3 people. Well, nah, one or 2 people. Every once in a while, you'd find the random rogue who was just as geared as you, and they were trying to fight you, and you had this really awesome fight. But that's gonna be gone because this random rogue is gonna way outgear me, and I'm gonna instantly die. And it has nothing to do with skill; it has to do with gear, and I don't like that. So yeah, I would say I'll see you guys next time, but I don't know if there's gonna be a next time. At least for Rift. I'll definitely be doing other stuff, but thanks for watching. Anyways, I know it's kind of a depressing video, but it's depressing state of the game. Hopefully Tryon listens and they bring back some kind of progression to PvP. Make prestige levels matter again. Make it so that players who want to PvP only can be as powerful as the people who just raid. PvP is not something that I do to get to the end game. PvP is the end game. Anyways, this is Fang, though. Talk to you guys later.